The rich rancher dared her with his wild stallion. After 30 cowboys failed, a mail-order bride won. The towns, fields, and forests seemed endless, stretching out under a sky that looked bigger than anything she had ever seen. Each mile brought her closer to a life she had only imagined in her dreams, a life on a ranch in the West, far from the small town where she had grown up. Emily had answered an ad for a mail-order bride. At first, she had hesitated, wondering if it was the right choice, but her curiosity and desire for adventure had won. Now, as the train clattered along the tracks, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. She did not know what awaited her, but something deep inside told her that this was the path she was meant to take. As the train slowed, Emily saw the sprawling ranch in the distance. It was larger than she could have imagined, with wide fields of green, fences stretching for miles, and a group of buildings at the center that formed the ranch's heart. Horses grazed in the pastures, their manes catching the sunlight. She could see the dust rising as cowboys moved across the land, guiding cattle and checking fences. It all looked both beautiful and intimidating, like a world completely separate from her own. When she finally stepped off the train, Emily felt the warm breeze on her face. She clutched her small bag tightly and tried to calm the fluttering in her stomach. A wagon was waiting to take her to the ranch, and as she climbed aboard, she noticed a man standing near the main barn. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore a hat that shaded his face, but Emily could feel the quiet power in his presence. This was John, the rancher who had sent for her. He had a reputation in the area as a strong, no-nonsense man, one who had tamed his land and lived by his own rules. But there was something else about him, too, a restless spirit, a hint of challenge in his gaze, as if he were testing her before she had even arrived. Emily's first days on the ranch were a whirlwind of learning and observation. She had to adjust to the rhythms of ranch life, which were very different from what she had known. She learned to fetch water, care for the animals, and understand the subtle signs of the land. The way the wind moved across the fields, how the cattle reacted to a passing horse, and the careful maintenance needed to keep the ranch running smoothly. Every day brought new lessons, and Emily found herself both exhausted and exhilarated. She realized that surviving on this ranch would require patience, intelligence, and courage. It was during one of these early days that Emily first heard about Thunder, the wild stallion that had defeated 30 cowboys before her. The story was told around the dinner table, with ranch hands laughing nervously as they recounted each failed attempt. Thunder was not just any horse. He was large, strong, and unpredictable. He had a spirit that no one had been able to break, and many who had tried had been thrown off, some with minor injuries, others shaken for weeks. Emily listened carefully, her heart racing. The story could have been intimidating, but instead of fear, she felt a spark of curiosity. She wanted to see the horse for herself, to understand what made him so untamable. Her first glimpse of Thunder was unforgettable. He stood in a large paddock, his dark coat shining in the sun, muscles rippling beneath his skin. His eyes were sharp, alert, and full of energy. As Emily approached, he lifted his head and snorted, pawing at the ground. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Here was a creature that embodied freedom and wildness, a living force of nature. She could see why 30 men had failed to ride him. But instead of retreating, Emily found herself drawn closer, studying his movements, noticing the way he shifted his weight, how he responded to the voices and gestures of the ranch hands. She realized that Thunder was not cruel or mean. He was cautious, proud, and intelligent. Emily's curiosity soon became determination. She began spending more time observing Thunder from a distance. She would watch him graze, run, and interact with the other horses, learning his habits and temperament. She discovered that he responded to calmness rather than force, to patience rather than rushing. The more she watched, the more she felt that she could connect with him, not by trying to dominate him, but by understanding him. This quiet study became a daily ritual, giving her a sense of purpose and building her confidence. Meanwhile, John began noticing Emily in a new light. He had expected a quiet, obedient bride who would follow his instructions without question. What he saw instead was a young woman who was intelligent, independent, and unafraid of the challenges around her. She asked questions, listened carefully, and approached each task with thoughtfulness. He found himself respecting her, even when she made mistakes, because she always tried again with determination. There was a spark between them, subtle but growing, rooted in mutual respect and curiosity. John did not yet admit it to himself, but Emily was beginning to change the way he viewed his world. Life on the ranch was not without its challenges. Emily faced days when the work was exhausting, when the wind and dust seemed endless, and when the isolation made her doubt her decision. At night, she would sit by the small fireplace in her cabin, reflecting on her choices. She missed her family and the familiar comforts of home, but she also felt a sense of achievement in the small victories of the day, catching a calf, mending a fence, or simply earning a nod of approval from John. Each success, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and reinforced her belief that she could thrive here. Through it all, thunder remained the silent challenge in the background. Emily knew that the horse was more than just a test. He was a symbol of the courage and patience she would need to survive and succeed on the ranch. She dreamed of the day when she might approach him, not as an intruder or challenger, but as someone who could connect with his wild spirit. That dream became a quiet obsession, driving her to study, observe, and learn everything she could about horses and their behavior. She began to understand that taming thunder would not be about power or force. It would be about respect, understanding, and trust. Emily also began forming relationships with the other people on the ranch. The ranch hands were wary at first, unsure how to treat someone who had come from a different world. But Emily's kindness, intelligence, and willingness to work hard gradually won them over. She listened to their stories, learned from their experience, and even shared her own insights. Slowly, she became part of the community, not just as a newcomer, but as someone who contributed and cared. These connections gave her strength and reassurance, reminding her that she was not alone in this vast, challenging land. As the weeks passed, Emily felt herself changing. The fear and uncertainty that had accompanied her arrival were replaced with determination and focus. She no longer saw the ranch as a place of danger or isolation. She saw it as a place of opportunity, growth, and challenge. Every task, every lesson, and every moment spent observing thunder contributed to her transformation. She felt stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever imagined. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, Emily stood at the edge of Thunder's paddock, watching him move gracefully across the field. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, and the world seemed to hold its breath in that quiet, magical moment. Emily felt a deep connection to the land, to the horse, and to the life she had chosen. She knew that the path ahead would be difficult, that many challenges awaited her, but she also knew that she was ready. She was ready to face thunder, to face John's expectations, and to face her own fears. By the end of her first month on the ranch, Emily had earned the respect of John, the ranch hands, and even the skeptical townspeople. She had adapted to a life that had once seemed impossible, proving to herself that courage, patience, and determination could overcome any obstacle. And though she had not yet ridden thunder, she felt a quiet certainty that when the time came, she would succeed where others had failed, not through force, but through understanding, empathy, and unshakable resolve. Emily went to bed that night feeling a mixture of anticipation and excitement. The challenge of thunder loomed ahead, but it no longer seemed impossible. She had come to the ranch seeking adventure and a new life, and she had found something far greater, a sense of purpose, strength, and the courage to embrace the unknown. As she drifted off to sleep, she dreamed of the day she would meet the wild stallion up close, confident that her determination and heart would guide her through the greatest challenge of her life. Emily had begun to feel a rhythm in her new life on the ranch, but she knew that the true test was yet to come. Each day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to understand the land she had chosen to call home. The mornings were filled with chores that required strength and careful attention, feeding the horses, checking the fences, and helping the ranch hands with the cattle. Emily had learned to rise early, sometimes before the sun had even begun to stretch across the horizon. She would step out of her small cabin, inhale the crisp, clean air, and watch as the ranch slowly came to life. The animals had become a source of both fascination and comfort for her. Emily quickly discovered that she had a natural affinity for them. Horses, cows, and even the smaller animals of the ranch seemed to sense her gentle presence. She spent hours watching the herd, learning how to anticipate their movements and understand their behavior. Slowly, she began to feel a connection to the animals that went beyond simple care. They were not just creatures to be tended. They were companions in a world that could sometimes feel lonely and overwhelming. Despite her growing confidence, there were moments when Emily felt overwhelmed. The work was demanding, the days long, and the isolation could weigh heavily. Yet, each time doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the reason she had come. She was not here to be sheltered or protected. She was here to grow, to challenge herself, and to face the unknown with courage. These reminders strengthened her resolve and allowed her to face the tasks ahead with determination and patience. Thunder remained the ever-present challenge in her thoughts. The wild stallion had become an obsession, not just because of his reputation, but because he represented everything that was untamed and extraordinary about the ranch. Emily often walked to the paddock where he roamed, watching his movements with careful attention. She noted how he responded to the voices of the ranch hands, how he paced when he sensed a new presence, and how he sometimes seemed almost playful, as if daring anyone who approached to prove their courage. Emily understood that Thunder was more than just a horse. He was a symbol of the land itself, untamed, proud, and demanding respect. To ride him would require more than skill. It would require understanding, empathy, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. Emily began reading books about horse behavior and training, taking careful notes and applying her observations to what she saw in Thunder. She realized that patience was key. Thunder would not respond to fear or force, only to confidence and respect. Her efforts did not go unnoticed. John, the rancher, had been watching her progress with quiet interest. At first, he had been skeptical, unsure if Emily could adapt to the rigors of ranch life. But her dedication, intelligence, and willingness to learn had slowly changed his opinion. He began to see her as more than just a young woman who had answered an ad. He saw her as someone capable, resilient, and resourceful. There were moments when he would catch her observing Thunder, her eyes focused and thoughtful, and he would feel a growing respect for her courage and determination. The ranch hands, too, began to accept her as part of the team. Initially, some had been doubtful, unsure if she could handle the work or fit into their world. But Emily's persistence, kindness, and willingness to learn gradually won them over. She listened to their advice, asked questions when she did not understand, and never hesitated to help wherever she could. Her presence brought a new energy to the ranch, one that was both inspiring and reassuring. The men began to see that she was not just adapting to the life on the ranch, she was thriving. Emily's daily routine became a balance of work, observation, and learning. Mornings were spent tending to the animals and assisting with the cattle, while afternoons were often dedicated to understanding the land and the horses. She would walk along the fences, checking for breaks or weaknesses, and then spend time observing Thunder, noting his reactions to the environment and the people around him. Evenings were quieter, spent in reflection and planning for the next day. Emily found that these routines, though tiring, brought a sense of peace and purpose that she had never experienced before. As she grew more confident, Emily began experimenting with small interactions with Thunder. She would approach the paddock quietly, speaking in soft tones, and gradually extend her hand to offer a treat. At first, Thunder would snort and back away, his movements cautious and deliberate, but Emily did not give up. Day after day, she repeated the process, slowly gaining his trust. She learned to read his body language, to notice when he was curious, anxious, or playful. Each small victory, whether it was a nudge of the nose or a calmer stance in her presence, filled her with pride and reinforced her determination to succeed. The relationship between Emily and John also began to evolve. Though their connection was still rooted in mutual respect, there were moments of unspoken understanding that hinted at a deeper bond. John admired her intelligence, her courage, and her ability to adapt to a world that was completely foreign to her. Emily, in turn, recognized John's strength, wisdom, and commitment to the land he had built. Though neither spoke openly about their feelings, there was a growing sense of trust and familiarity between them, a recognition of each other's capabilities and character. One afternoon, as Emily was observing Thunder from a distance, John approached her quietly. He stood beside her, watching the stallion for several minutes without speaking. Finally, he said, "You're different from the others. You don't try to force him. You watch, you learn, you understand. That's what it takes with him." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of validation and encouragement. She realized that John's respect was not given lightly. It had to be earned through patience, effort, and insight. The work on the ranch continued, and Emily's skills grew with each passing day. She became proficient in riding the gentler horses, guiding the cattle, and performing the demanding physical tasks required to maintain the property. Each success, no matter how small, boosted her confidence and reinforced her belief that she could eventually face Thunder and succeed where others had failed. She began to dream of that moment not with fear, but with excitement and anticipation, imagining the challenge as an opportunity to prove her courage and determination. Despite the physical demands of ranch life, Emily also began to appreciate the beauty and serenity of the land. She would walk along the hills at sunrise, watching the sunlight dance across the fields and mountains, feeling a sense of peace that was both calming and inspiring. The vastness of the landscape reminded her of her own potential and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. She understood that life on the ranch was not just about work. It was about connection to the land, to the animals, and to the people who shared it with her. Emily's growing confidence and connection to the ranch did not mean that the journey was without difficulty. There were moments of frustration when a fence broke, a calf ran astray, or Thunder reacted unpredictably. But each challenge became a learning opportunity, teaching her resilience, patience, and problem-solving. Emily began to understand that true mastery of the ranch and of Thunder required more than skill. It required emotional intelligence, perseverance, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. Her bond with Thunder continued to deepen. She learned to approach him with a calm and confident presence, speaking softly and moving slowly. She began to understand his cues and respond in ways that reassured him rather than intimidated him. The stallion, who had once been a symbol of untamed wildness, slowly became a partner in her journey. Emily realized that their connection was built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding, a relationship that mirrored the life she was building on the ranch. As Emily's knowledge and confidence grew, so too did her sense of belonging. The ranch was no longer a strange and intimidating place. It had become her home, a place where she could grow, learn, and thrive. She had earned the respect of John, the ranch hands, and the townspeople, not through charm or luck, but through hard work, determination, and a willingness to embrace challenges. Emily's journey was far from over, but she knew that she was on the right path, one that would ultimately lead her to face thunder and prove herself in ways she had never imagined. In the evenings, Emily would often sit by the fire in her cabin, reflecting on the day and planning for the next. She thought about the lessons she had learned, the progress she had made, and the challenges that still lay ahead. She understood that taming thunder, or at least earning his trust, would be one of the greatest tests of her courage and skill. But she no longer approached it with fear. She approached it with determination, patience, and a deep respect for the stallion's spirit. By the end of her second month on the ranch, Emily had grown into a capable, confident, and resilient woman. She had adapted to the demands of ranch life, built meaningful relationships with the people around her, and begun to form a bond with Thunder that was based on understanding and trust. The land that had once seemed vast and intimidating now felt familiar and alive, filled with opportunities for growth and discovery. Emily knew that the challenges ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that she was ready. Every day brought her closer to the moment when she would finally face Thunder, and with each passing day, her confidence and determination grew. Emily had come to the ranch seeking adventure and a new life, and she had found something far greater, a sense of purpose, strength, and the courage to embrace the unknown. She knew that the road ahead would test her in ways she could not yet imagine, but she also knew that she had the heart, mind, and spirit to succeed. As she walked across the fields at sunset, Emily paused to watch Thunder graze in the fading light. The stallion's dark coat glistened, and his powerful muscles moved with grace and strength. Emily felt a deep connection to him, a quiet understanding that spoke to her soul. She knew that the day she would ride him would come, and when it did, she would be ready. For now, she was content to learn, observe, and grow, preparing herself for the challenge that would define her new life on the ranch. Emily had spent months learning the rhythms of the ranch, observing Thunder, and understanding the people and land around her. Each day had brought new challenges, and she had met them with determination, patience, and growing confidence. Yet, she knew that the ultimate test lay ahead. The stories of Thunder's wild spirit and of the 30 cowboys who had failed to ride him were never far from her mind. Emily understood that taming, or at least riding, this stallion would require not only skill and courage, but also deep empathy and understanding. One crisp morning, John called Emily to the main barn. The sunlight streamed through the windows, dust particles floating like tiny stars in the warm light. Emily approached, curious and alert. John stood beside Thunder's paddock, his expression unreadable. Emily's heart beat faster. She had anticipated this moment, but now that it had arrived, she felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. "Emily," John said quietly, his voice calm but firm, "it's time to see how far you've come. I want you to try riding him." Emily's eyes widened, and for a moment she felt a wave of fear and uncertainty. The thought of facing the stallion, so many had failed before her, was daunting. But she took a deep breath and reminded herself of the months she had spent learning, observing, and preparing. She had earned this opportunity through patience and persistence. She nodded. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. John gave a small nod of approval. "Remember, it's not about force. Thunder will sense fear or impatience. You have to stay calm, confident, and understanding. Treat him as a partner, not a challenge to conquer." Emily stepped closer to the paddock, her eyes meeting Thunder's. The stallion lifted his head, nostrils flaring, and let out a soft whinny. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She had watched him for weeks, studied his movements, and learned to read his expressions. But facing him up close was different. He was larger than she had imagined, powerful and majestic, with a presence that commanded respect. She reminded herself to stay calm, to focus on her breathing, and to approach with patience. For the next several days, Emily devoted herself entirely to preparation. She spent hours brushing Thunder, walking alongside him, and speaking softly to gain his trust. She practiced mounting on gentler horses to build her confidence and refine her balance. Every interaction with the stallion was a lesson in patience and observation. Emily learned that sudden movements or loud voices would startle him, but calm, deliberate actions encouraged curiosity and acceptance. She began to see subtle patterns in his behavior, the flick of his ears, the way he shifted his weight, the moments when he seemed relaxed versus alert. These small details became her guides, helping her anticipate his reactions and respond appropriately. During this time, Emily also reflected on her own fears and doubts. She realized that the challenge with Thunder was as much internal as it was external. She had to confront her insecurities, trust her instincts, and maintain calm under pressure. Each day, she practiced visualization techniques, imagining herself riding the stallion successfully, feeling his strength beneath her and the wind rushing past. These exercises strengthened her mental focus and gave her confidence that she could meet the challenge ahead. The ranch hands watched Emily's preparations with curiosity and quiet respect. Some of them had doubted her when she first arrived, unsure if she could handle the demands of ranch life or face the notorious stallion. But now, seeing her dedication, patience, and intelligence, they began to believe in her. They offered advice when asked, shared stories of their own experiences with horses, and encouraged her when progress seemed slow. Emily appreciated their support, understanding that trust and cooperation were essential not just with the animals, but with the people around her. John observed her quietly, noting the subtle changes in her confidence and approach. He saw how she had grown, not just in skill, but in understanding. Her interactions with Thunder reflected a deepening empathy and patience, qualities that no amount of physical strength could replace. John began to feel a growing admiration for her determination and a quiet curiosity about the woman who had come from so far away and adapted so completely to his world. One afternoon, Emily decided it was time for a new step. She had built a foundation of trust with Thunder and felt ready to attempt a brief, supervised ride under careful guidance. With John standing nearby and a ranch hand at her side, she approached the stallion with a calm, steady presence. She spoke softly, offering gentle touches and small reassurances. Thunder's ears twitched, and after a tense moment, he allowed her to place a hand on his flank. Emily felt her heart pound, but she remained steady, recalling all the lessons she had learned. The first attempt was brief and cautious. Emily mounted carefully, keeping her weight centered and her movements deliberate. Thunder shifted nervously at first, but then seemed to relax under her calm guidance. Emily felt a thrill of accomplishment as she moved in sync with the stallion, sensing his strength and intelligence beneath her. She dismounted slowly, her hands shaking slightly with excitement. She had done it. She had taken the first step toward achieving what so many had failed to do before her. The following days were filled with repetition, practice, and refinement. Emily worked on building Thunder's trust and her own confidence. She experimented with different techniques, always prioritizing patience, observation, and understanding. Thunder responded positively, gradually becoming more receptive to her presence and commands. Emily learned to read the smallest shifts in his posture, to anticipate his reactions, and to maintain calm even when he was unpredictable. Each successful interaction reinforced her belief that she could meet the ultimate challenge. During this period, Emily also developed a stronger bond with John. He provided guidance when needed, shared insights from his years of experience, and encouraged her to trust her instincts. Their conversations grew longer and more personal, reflecting a shared respect and admiration. Emily realized that John's quiet encouragement had been as important as her own determination. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between challenge and support, creating an environment where both could grow and learn. Despite the progress, there were moments of doubt and fear. Emily sometimes questioned whether she was ready to face Thunder fully, recalling the stories of the Cowboys who had failed. The stallion's power and unpredictability were undeniable, and she knew that mistakes could be dangerous. Yet each time fear threatened to overwhelm her, she focused on the lessons she had learned, the trust she had built, and the resilience she had developed. She reminded herself that success required patience, empathy, and courage, not force or recklessness. Emily's determination inspired others on the ranch as well. The ranch hands, who had initially been skeptical, began to see her as a source of inspiration. They admired her persistence, intelligence, and respect for the animals. Even John, who had once viewed her as an outsider, began to recognize her as an equal partner in the life of the ranch. Emily's presence brought a sense of energy and possibility, reminding everyone that courage and determination could overcome even the most daunting challenges. One morning, after weeks of preparation, Emily felt ready for a more extended ride. The air was crisp, the sky clear, and Thunder seemed calm and attentive. She approached him slowly, speaking in soft tones and offering gentle touches. John and a ranch hand stood nearby, ready to assist if necessary, but Emily felt a quiet confidence that she could handle this next step on her own. Mounting Thunder carefully, Emily focused on her breathing and movements. She allowed the stallion to feel her confidence and calmness, moving in harmony with his rhythm. The first few moments were tense, as Thunder tested her balance and reactions, but Emily remained steady, responding to his cues with patience and understanding. She felt a thrill of connection as she guided him gently across the paddock, sensing the trust that had grown between them. By the end of the ride, Emily felt a deep sense of accomplishment and pride. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and challenge, and emerged stronger and more confident. Thunder, who had once been a symbol of untamed wildness and challenge, had become a partner in her journey, a reflection of her patience, empathy, and determination. Emily knew that the ultimate test was still ahead, but she also knew that she was ready. That evening, as the sun set over the rolling hills, Emily sat quietly, reflecting on the progress she had made. She thought about the months of hard work, observation, and practice, and about the relationships she had built with John, the ranch hands, and the animals. She felt a deep sense of belonging, a realization that she was no longer an outsider but an integral part of the ranch. Most importantly, she felt ready to face the challenge that would define her new life, a challenge that required courage, patience, and trust, both in herself and in Thunder. Emily's preparation had not been easy. There had been moments of fear, frustration, and doubt. But through patience, observation, and determination, she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. She had learned to read Thunder's movements, anticipate his reactions, and respond with empathy and calmness. She had earned the respect of John, the ranch hands, and even the stallion himself. And she knew that when the time came, she would face Thunder not with force, but with understanding, courage, and the quiet confidence of someone who had prepared for the greatest challenge of her life. The morning air was crisp, and the sky above the ranch was painted with soft hues of orange and pink as the sun began its climb. Emily stood at the edge of Thunder's paddock, her heart beating with anticipation. Today was the day she would attempt the ride she had been preparing for months. Every hour she had spent observing the stallion, learning his habits, building trust, and strengthening her own confidence had led to this moment. She felt both nervous and exhilarated, a mix of emotions that made her pulse quicken. Thunder was already aware of her presence. The stallion lifted his head, nostrils flaring slightly, and his dark eyes fixed on her. He snorted softly, pawing at the ground with a controlled energy that reminded Emily of the power beneath him. She knew that she could not force him to cooperate. Every interaction had taught her that patience, calmness, and understanding were far more effective than strength or intimidation. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her movements deliberate and measured. John stood nearby, his arms crossed over his chest. His gaze was steady, observing Emily with a mix of caution and respect. He had seen her progress over the past weeks and knew that she was ready, but he also understood the unpredictability of thunder. The ranch hands were stationed a little further away, ready to assist if necessary, but trusting Emily to handle the challenge. The atmosphere was quiet, filled with tension and anticipation, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Emily approached Thunder slowly, speaking in a gentle, soothing voice. She extended her hand, allowing the stallion to sniff and become accustomed to her presence. Thunder's ears twitched, his muscles tense, but he did not move away. Emily's heart raced, but she remained calm, reminding herself to breathe steadily and to focus on the connection she had built with him. Every step, every movement, had to convey confidence and trust. She knew that if she wavered, the stallion would sense it and react unpredictably. After a few moments of careful interaction, Emily placed a hand on Thunder's flank, feeling the strength beneath her palm. The stallion shifted slightly, testing her, but she remained steady, speaking softly and moving with deliberate calmness. Slowly, she mounted, keeping her balance centered and her movements fluid. The first few seconds were tense. Thunder shifted beneath her, testing her weight and balance. Emily felt a thrill of fear, but she focused on her breathing and her training. She allowed the stallion to sense her confidence and calm presence, guiding him with subtle shifts in weight and gentle reins. At first, Thunder moved cautiously, circling the paddock with careful, deliberate steps. Emily's muscles were tense, but she reminded herself to stay relaxed, to anticipate his movements, and to respond with patience and precision. Every flick of his ears, every shift of his stance, conveyed information, and Emily used all her observation skills to interpret it. She spoke softly, encouragingly, letting him know that she was not a threat, but a partner. The connection she had spent months building was now being tested in the most direct way. As the ride continued, Thunder began to respond more positively. He shifted more smoothly, his steps more controlled, as if recognizing Emily's calm confidence. There were moments when he hesitated or tried to assert his strength, pawing the ground or tossing his head, but Emily remained composed. She adjusted her posture, guided him with subtle movements, and reinforced the trust they had developed. Each moment of progress filled her with a sense of exhilaration and accomplishment. She was not just riding the stallion, she was connecting with him, moving as one with his energy and spirit. The ranch hands watched with awe and admiration. Many had doubted that Emily could face Thunder successfully, but now they saw the transformation that had taken place. She was no longer the newcomer, hesitant and uncertain. She was confident, capable, and fully engaged with the challenge before her. John's expression was unreadable at first, but a faint hint of pride and respect began to show. He had trained many cowboys over the years, and few had demonstrated the patience, understanding, and composure that Emily displayed. Emily guided Thunder toward a small, open area of the paddock, allowing him to move more freely. She felt the stallion's power beneath her, the muscles coiling and releasing with every step. The wind brushed against her face, carrying the scent of grass, earth, and freedom. She felt a rush of exhilaration, a sense of triumph that was both thrilling and humbling. She realized that this moment was not just about riding Thunder. It was about overcoming her own fears, trusting in her abilities, and embracing the connection she had nurtured. Thunder began to respond with increasing smoothness and confidence. Emily felt the subtle shifts in his weight, anticipating his movements and guiding him with precise adjustments. She encouraged him with soft words and gentle touches, reinforcing the trust that had been carefully built over weeks of preparation. The stallion's movements became more fluid, more cooperative, and Emily felt a deep sense of joy and pride. She was riding the untamable stallion, not through force, but through understanding and partnership. At one point, Thunder hesitated, tossing his head in defiance and attempting to veer toward the fence. Emily held her ground, maintaining calm and steadying her posture. She spoke softly, using all the techniques she had learned, and slowly he responded. The moment of tension passed, and Thunder resumed a smooth, controlled pace. Emily felt a surge of accomplishment and relief. She realized that the true challenge was not just physical, it was emotional, requiring patience, empathy, and a deep connection. The ride continued for several minutes, each passing moment strengthening the bond between Emily and Thunder. She felt a sense of unity with the stallion, moving in harmony with his energy and instincts. Every flick of his ears, every shift of his hooves, conveyed understanding and trust. Emily had faced the challenge that had defeated 30 cowboys, and she was succeeding not through dominance, but through patience, courage, and respect. John watched silently, recognizing the transformation in both Emily and the stallion. The young woman who had arrived timid and uncertain had grown into a confident, capable rider who had earned the trust of the untamable Thunder. He saw the depth of her determination, the intelligence in her actions, and the quiet strength that allowed her to face fear and uncertainty with composure. A sense of pride welled within him, though he kept his emotions guarded, as was his nature. Emily guided Thunder around the paddock, experimenting with gentle turns, changes in pace, and subtle cues. Each successful maneuver reinforced her confidence and strengthened the stallion's responsiveness. The connection they shared was palpable, a silent understanding that transcended words. Emily realized that this moment was not just about conquering a challenge, it was about partnership, trust, and mutual respect. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had succeeded where others had failed. The ranch hands gradually approached, applauding quietly, careful not to startle Thunder. Their admiration for Emily was evident, and she felt a warm sense of pride. She had earned their respect not just through skill, but through perseverance, patience, and emotional intelligence. Thunder responded calmly to their presence, a testament to the trust and bond that Emily had cultivated. She smiled, feeling a sense of joy and fulfillment that words could hardly capture. As the ride came to an end, Emily guided Thunder toward the fence, dismounting carefully. Her legs were tired, her muscles sore, but her heart was light with triumph. She had faced the challenge fully, tested her courage and patience, and succeeded. Thunder, who had been a symbol of untamed strength and defiance, now stood calm and attentive, recognizing her as a trusted partner. Emily patted his neck gently, whispering words of praise and gratitude. The stallion nudged her hand in acknowledgement, a silent bond between them. John stepped forward, his expression unreadable at first. Then he nodded, a small but significant gesture of approval. "Well done," he said quietly. "You've earned his trust and you've earned mine." Emily felt a wave of relief and pride. The months of preparation, observation, and patience had culminated in this moment of triumph. She had not only succeeded with Thunder, but had also proven to herself and everyone around her that determination, courage, and empathy could overcome even the greatest challenges. The rest of the day was filled with a quiet celebration. The ranch hands shared stories of their own experiences, praised Emily's courage, and reflected on the remarkable bond she had formed with Thunder. Emily felt a deep sense of belonging and accomplishment. She realized that this moment was a turning point, not just in her journey with the stallion, but in her life on the ranch. She had transformed from a newcomer with uncertainty into a confident, capable woman who had faced fear and emerged stronger. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the paddocks and hills, Emily stood beside Thunder, feeling the warmth of his presence. She understood that this was only the beginning of her journey, but she also knew that she had proven something vital, to herself, to John, and to everyone who had doubted her. She had faced the untamable, trusted her instincts, and succeeded through patience, courage, and respect. The ranch, the land, the animals, and even John seemed to acknowledge her accomplishment, and Emily felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. That night, as Emily sat by the fireplace in her cabin, she reflected on the day's events. She thought about the months of preparation, the lessons learned, and the moments of doubt she had overcome. She realized that her journey was about more than just riding a horse. It was about growth, trust, and the courage to face challenges head-on. Emily knew that the days ahead would bring new adventures, responsibilities, and opportunities, but she felt ready. She had faced her greatest fear and emerged victorious, and she understood that nothing could hold her back if she approached life with patience, courage, and a steadfast heart. After the incredible ride with Thunder, life on the ranch seemed to take on a new rhythm for Emily. The sense of accomplishment she felt was profound, but it wasn't just about conquering the wild stallion. It was about what the experience had taught her: patience, courage, empathy, and trust. Each day now felt like a continuation of that lesson, and Emily approached her work with a quiet confidence that was evident to everyone around her. Emily began to take on more responsibility on the ranch. She no longer needed constant guidance from John or the ranch hands. She had developed the skills and intuition necessary to manage both the animals and the land. She helped coordinate cattle drives, repaired fences with precision, and even trained some of the younger horses, applying the techniques she had learned with Thunder. Her days were long and filled with hard work, but Emily loved every moment. The ranch had become more than just a place to live. It had become her home, a place where she felt capable, respected, and connected to something greater than herself. Her bond with Thunder continued to grow. The stallion, once untamable and unpredictable, now followed her commands with attentiveness and trust. Emily rode him regularly, exploring the far reaches of the ranch, guiding him through open fields, hills, and streams. She marveled at the freedom and power beneath her, feeling the wind against her face and the steady rhythm of Thunder's stride. Each ride strengthened their connection, and Emily realized that the trust they shared was mutual. Thunder had become a partner, a companion, and a symbol of her growth and determination. Emily's relationship with John also began to deepen. The mutual respect that had developed between them during her preparation and training with Thunder grew into a quiet affection. They shared more conversations during long rides or while overseeing the cattle, discussing not just ranch matters, but life, dreams, and personal experiences. Emily admired John's wisdom, resilience, and dedication to the land, while John was increasingly aware of Emily's intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness. Their connection was natural, built on shared respect and understanding rather than force or expectation. One afternoon, after a particularly successful ride with Thunder, Emily and John paused at the edge of the main pasture. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the field. Emily dismounted and stood beside the stallion, running her hand over his strong neck. John approached quietly, and for a moment neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, filled with mutual understanding and the unspoken acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. "You've changed things around here," John said finally, his voice calm but carrying a hint of admiration. "Not just with the horses or the land, but with everyone. You've earned respect in a way that no one could have expected." Emily smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. She had worked hard to prove herself, but hearing John's words made her realize the full impact of her journey. It wasn't just about conquering a challenge. It was about growing into a person capable of making a difference, of earning trust, and of embracing life fully. The ranch hands continued to show their respect and admiration. They included her in decisions, sought her advice, and treated her as a valued member of the team. Emily's presence had changed the dynamics on the ranch. Her determination and intelligence inspired others to approach their work with renewed energy and dedication. The sense of community strengthened, and Emily felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she had become an integral part of this world she had once only observed from a distance. Emily also noticed a subtle shift in her own perspective. She had arrived at the ranch uncertain and cautious, unsure if she could adapt to a life so different from her own. But through perseverance and courage, she had not only adapted, she had thrived. She had faced fear head-on, built connections with animals and people alike, and grown into a confident, capable woman. The transformation was profound, and Emily felt a sense of empowerment that she had never experienced before. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she could face them with strength and determination. The days turned into weeks, and Emily's confidence continued to grow. She became more adventurous in her rides with Thunder, exploring areas of the ranch she had never seen before. She learned to anticipate Thunder's moods and movements with greater precision, guiding him effortlessly through difficult terrain. Their rides became a form of meditation, a way to connect with the land, the animals, and herself. Emily felt a profound sense of freedom and joy, knowing that she had achieved a bond with a creature as strong and spirited as Thunder. John, too, began to share more of himself with Emily. He told her stories of his life growing up on the ranch, the struggles he had faced, and the lessons he had learned from the land and the animals. Emily listened intently, absorbing his words and gaining a deeper understanding of the life she had chosen. Their conversations often extended into the evening, sitting by the fire in her cabin or watching the sunset from a hilltop. The trust and respect between them deepened, and a quiet, mutual affection began to grow. Emily's accomplishments were also recognized by the local townspeople. Many had been skeptical when they learned of her arrival, wondering if she could survive the harsh demands of ranch life or handle the challenges presented by Thunder. But over time, they saw her resilience, intelligence, and courage, and their respect grew. Emily found herself welcomed not only as a skilled and capable individual, but also as a friend and confidant. The acceptance of the community reinforced her sense of belonging and solidified her place in this new life. As the seasons changed, Emily continued to thrive on the ranch. She adapted to the varying demands of the land, from the heat of summer to the chill of winter, and found joy in the routine and the challenges. She became more skilled in riding, handling cattle, and managing the animals. Each day brought new lessons and new opportunities for growth, and Emily approached them with enthusiasm and determination. She felt a deep connection to the land, recognizing that her life on the ranch was not just about survival but about partnership with the animals, with John, and with the world around her. Emily also found moments of quiet reflection. She would often walk alone along the hills at dawn or dusk, observing the landscape and considering her journey. She thought about the months of preparation, the challenges she had faced, and the triumphs she had achieved. She reflected on the courage it had taken to face Thunder and the lessons she had learned about patience, empathy, and trust. These moments reinforced her sense of self and her belief in her own abilities. Her relationship with John continued to develop naturally. They shared moments of laughter, mutual respect, and quiet companionship. Emily admired his dedication to the land and the animals, while John respected her courage, intelligence, and resilience. Their connection was deepening without need for grand gestures or declarations. It was a steady, evolving bond built on shared experiences, mutual trust, and understanding. Both recognized that this partnership, both in life and on the ranch, was rooted in equality, respect, and a shared commitment to the world they had built together. One spring morning, Emily decided to explore a distant section of the ranch that she had not yet visited. Mounted on Thunder, she rode through fields dotted with wildflowers, following a narrow trail that wound along a stream. The sun warmed her back, and the gentle sound of flowing water filled the air. She felt an overwhelming sense of peace and connection, not just to the land, but to the life she had created for herself. Thunder moved with confidence and grace beneath her, responding seamlessly to her guidance. Emily smiled, feeling the joy of freedom, accomplishment, and harmony all at once. Returning to the main ranch area, Emily noticed John waiting by the barn. He greeted her with a nod and a smile, acknowledging her safe return. They spent the afternoon overseeing the animals together, discussing plans for the coming months and sharing insights about the land. Emily realized that these moments, though seemingly ordinary, were rich with meaning. They represented trust, partnership, and the life she had worked so hard to create. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had earned her place in this world, not through luck or circumstance, but through courage, determination, and heart. As the months passed, Emily's life on the ranch continued to flourish. She had become a respected figure among the ranch hands, a trusted partner to John, and a friend to the animals she cared for. Thunder remained her loyal companion, a living symbol of the bond that could be built through patience, understanding, and courage. Emily's confidence, resilience, and empathy had grown exponentially, allowing her to face challenges with clarity and determination. She had transformed from a newcomer uncertain of her place in the world to a capable, confident, and respected woman. Emily's success with Thunder also inspired others in subtle ways. She became a quiet example of perseverance, courage, and the power of empathy. Those around her recognized that her achievements were not just the result of skill, but of patience, observation, and the ability to connect deeply with the world around her. Her journey became a testament to the idea that true success comes from understanding, respect, and the willingness to face challenges with determination and heart. In her quiet moments, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the months of preparation, the fears she had overcome, and the trust she had built with Thunder and the people around her. She realized that the greatest lessons of her journey had not been about skill or strength alone, but about courage, empathy, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life she had created and the opportunities she had been given. The ranch, once intimidating and unfamiliar, had become a place of growth, connection, and fulfillment. Emily had found a home, a community, and a life rich with meaning and purpose. She had faced her fears, built trust with an untamable stallion, and proven herself capable of extraordinary courage and determination. And in doing so, she had earned not just respect and admiration, but a profound sense of self and belonging. Emily's journey was far from over. The ranch would continue to bring challenges, changes, and opportunities for growth. But she now faced them with the confidence and resilience she had developed through her experiences with Thunder and the life she had embraced. She understood that courage, patience, and empathy were not just qualities to be admired. They were tools that would guide her through every aspect of her life. As the sun set behind the hills, casting a golden glow over the fields and pastures, Emily stood beside Thunder, feeling the warmth of his presence and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her hand. She knew that she had accomplished something remarkable, not just in riding the stallion, but in the journey of growth, trust, and courage that had led her here. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and peace, knowing that she had truly found her place in the world, on the ranch, and in life.